I'm not sure if it makes you feel any better or not, but councils also gatekeep other councils, and I came across this case in the LGO archive. I was just looking for something else actually. It revolves around Runnymede Council, and actually they didn't do the most ridiculous job. They actually did pretty good all the way through it. The complaint was upheld, but there's only one little bit of the complaint. Actually, most of what they did was pretty sound. So actually, yeah, take my hat off to them really. There's a lot of things they could have done wrong, which they didn't, and so I'll go through the case in a little bit of detail. There's a couple of other interesting points as well, which I'm going to draw out. So effectively, this happened about a year ago. I'm recording this in October 2024. Happened in October 2023, and basically this single guy approaches the council, makes a homeless application, and there's no reason to think he might be in priority need. So they accept the relief duty, they do a personalised housing plan, they do the assessment, but then his children come to join and live with him basically, long story short. So now he's got dependent children, that means he's in priority need, and the council told him that once his children join him, he'll be in priority need, and therefore they'll offer him interim accommodation immediately. And so that's essentially what happened. So on that particular date, it's the 24th of October, if it makes a difference, the council told him to hang on for a phone call. They said they're going to ring him about 4 o'clock, and they'd provide some details about where he was going to be moving that night. But basically he didn't wait. I guess he was just very anxious. He found his own hotel accommodation for him and the kids, and the council then rang at about just before 4:30, and they'd offered something, and he said, look, I've already got something for the next couple of days. So at the same time, the council worked out that he didn't have a local connection to Runnymede. Now, a cynic might say that they finally realised that because they now had a duty to house him. Before that, they might not have been very attentive. But he had a local connection to Council B. I think from reading it, it looks like it's a neighbouring borough. Runnymede's just kind of like on the M25 on the west, kind of straddles the M25. And so, as well as kind of, progressing with the homeless application, Runnymede Council contact Council B and say, look, we've got someone, they're in priority need, they don't have a local connection to Runnymede, but they do have a local connection to Council B. Get to it basically. You need to kind of accept the referral and make accommodation available. A couple of days later, the council, this is 2 days after, after this happened, so the guy's only booked 2 days in a hotel, and Runnymede Council contacted him and say, look, we can get you a hotel in Council B's area. And he said, do you know what, I'm all right, thanks, I've got a bit more money, I'm going to get another 5 nights in this hotel. And so that's what happens. They don't hear anything back from Council B at all. At the end of that 5-day period, basically the council then provide him with interim accommodation, and the council keep trying to get Council B to give them a response. You might be familiar with the situation. Council B just ain't picking up the phone, they're not responding to emails. The council send another formal referral to them, and Council B just goes silent. At some point, and this is kind of funny, it's kind of not funny I guess, it wasn't funny for the officers and it wasn't funny for the family, but basically they finally get through to someone in this Council B's team, and the Council B's staff member says, yep, that's fine, no problem, we'll take the referral and we'll get some accommodation arranged. And then they hear nothing again. So again, Runnymede Council presumably trying to chase them down, trying to say, look, we've got a family here, we don't have a duty to house them, because they don't have a local connection here, you guys need to pick it up. And this Council B just essentially just got to go completely silent. This guy then goes to that Council B's area and they say, we've got no record of that conversation, and it turns out the housing officer had basically left the council. And actually the only thing Runnymede did wrong in any of this was they didn't provide interim accommodation for 1 night somewhere in this process, because there would have been lots of kind of rebookings and stuff, and at some point, I think it's like on one night, it seems to be 1 night, they didn't provide interim accommodation. But what actually happens was the Council B doesn't actually respond to them at all until January, when Runnymede threatened to take them to arbitration, which is a bit like taking them to court. And at that point, Council B finally says, okay, yeah, no, we've got a duty, we'll accept it. So I'm interested to know, and I can't work out exactly, but I'd imagine that there is also an LGO decision against Council B, and probably a much larger compensation payout for them. But it doesn't identify them, which is fair enough for anonymity. But yeah, just interesting that, as I say, just as a lot of people, when they go to a council to try and get them to house them, the council just goes dead. Same thing when it comes to actual councils trying to take on other councils. And I don't know, I'd be interested to speak to the officers in that case and just kind of see how annoyed they were. And I don't know Runnymede, so Runnymede might be a good council anyway. So it might be actually they're genuinely sort of sitting there saying, this is outrageous, this other council's not following the law. But balance of probabilities, I'd maybe think that Runnymede doesn't follow the law itself all the time. But yeah, just illustrates the kind of difficulties that even councils have. They know the law, they know exactly what the law is because they're motivated to know it, and yet they still have this kind of block and this ghosting situation. And again, lesson is, it's not until you threaten arbitration that you actually get things sorted out. So yeah, I just thought it was interesting. I might do a few more of these, but it just kind of draws out a couple of good principles. The other principle I didn't actually kind of really zone in on there was that, notice when Runnymede offered temporary accommodation in Council B's area and the guy declined, that did not end Runnymede's council's duty overall. So when he kind of ran out of the hotel booking a few days later, they still had that interim accommodation. Now I'm sure some councils would have jumped in and said, oh, we're going to end the duty because you haven't taken up accommodation. There's a little bit in the Edwards v Birmingham case, which is quite an interesting one from 2016, I think, where it made that point that if you're owed the Section 108 duty, the interim accommodation duty, but you prefer to live somewhere else in the very short term, that should be fine, and it should just be a case of reapproaching the council when you are in need of that interim accommodation a few days down the line. It should suit everyone.